Hello and welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Stephen Ryan.
And I'm Matthew Lucas.
And we post a video every week, so why not hit subscribe and the alert button so that you can keep up with our adventures.
Absolutely. And if you've got a burning horticultural question for Mr. Ryan, do put it in the comments below, say where you're from in the world, and he will answer it in our shorts in 60 seconds every Monday.
I'll do my very best.
And Stephen, I'm sensing we're in familiar territory.
We certainly are. We're in the Royal Melbourne Botanic Gardens yet again.
Yes. And it's very, very late winter. Literally, spring is just over there. I can smell wattle.
Yeah.
What are we here to talk about, Mr.
Well,
Ryan?
we're here to talk about the very plant that's right behind us.
Look behind you.
The ancient and revered group of plants known generically as Cycads.
Wow. And look, we've got two amazing cones on this. Oh, three actually.
Yes.
3 cones on this incredible cycad.
Yes.
Melbourne Botanic Gardens has got quite a collection, so it's a great garden to wander around to learn more about them.
Oh, exactly. And some lovely old specimens as well, so you can see what they could grow into if you lived long enough.
Okay, so where first?
All right, well, we're going to go off and meet somebody who knows almost everything there is to know about cycads, a friend of mine, Tim Uebergang.
Okay, well, let's go.
All right, but before we do that, I've got one I specifically want to show you.
Okay, let's go with that first, Stephen Ryan.
Now, Matthew,
Yes.
before we go and meet Tim,
Yes.
there's something I wanted to show you here, which is very much aligned to our story.
Well, this is an enormous cycad.
Yes, it is indeed an enormous cycad, Encephalartos altensteinii.
Encephalatus,
Yes.
elephant-like.
Yeah, Encephalatus. No, it's not. It's got to do with bread. I did look that up. It's inbred, as in B-R-E-A-D, because some of them, they used the crowns and they turned them into a food source. And so it's got to do with bread, anyway, the name. But it's not about that I wanted to mention. It's the fact that this particular species, not this particular individual, but this particular species, is the world's oldest pot plant.
Right, so not this one.
No.
But where is that one?
Well, the world's oldest pot plant is growing in a conservatory at Kew Botanic Gardens in England. Mm-hmm. It was one of this species that was collected by Francis Mason, who was Kew's very first collector.
Yes.
And they sent him to South Africa, and he brought back a plant of this, and it's still growing in Kew Botanic Gardens, and it was first potted up in 1755.
Oh my goodness, before Captain Cook came to Australia.
Exactly.
Wow, so long lived. This then must be a very old specimen, and probably an old specimen when it was planted here.
Well, I would imagine so. I mean, it's quite a large plant. It's interesting, though, this plant's quite a big plant with multiple crowns.
Yeah.
The one in Kew, if anybody's ever seen it, is a single trunk, and it's in this huge, big sort of wooden box type planter, and it comes up and it leans over in a weird sort of way, and it's got props under it holding it in position. But it is, in fact, the world's oldest pot plant.
Wow, there you go. Well, this is a stunning cycad.
It is. It's wonderful, and it's coning up in the top. So there's some lovely cones forming up in the top of the plant as well.
Are they lady or gentleman cones?
I would say that they're gentleman cones.
There we are.
So there you go.
Well, we're going to get into the difference between boys and girls with cycads with Tim. Well, let's go meet Tim and find out more about cycads.
Let's. Well, Matthew, I'd like to introduce my friend Tim Uebergang, who is a cycad aficionado, I guess.
Hello, Tim. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Matthew.
Thanks for having us in the gardens in a sea of cycads.
No, it's a fantastic spot. This is our cycad garden bed where it's one spot where we focus on the cycad plants.
You were just saying, though, earlier, there are grand plans for this area of bringing in more of the cycad collection to the spot.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. This is the conservation, sort of water conservation beds, but it's like cycads and other plants. We're going to evolve this space and create a collection of cycads that have a geographical theme to it. So people can see the greatest diversity that the plant group has to offer.
And I guess from our perspective, we'd like to know what enticed you into having this passion for cycads. I know a lot of people do, but what brought you into it?
Yeah, look, it's very interesting. I've always loved the aesthetics of plants, and interesting, odd plants are something that I've always loved, like yourself. But when I was working at the University of Melbourne in the system garden, we created Well, there's a historic garden there, which is an evolution garden.
Which we visited. We'll link that video.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a great garden, Tim. Well done.
Yeah, no, that was it was an extraordinary opportunity that I had, but I also had a great opportunity of studying a few subjects of botany, and through that process I learnt the significance of certain plants in their evolutionary timeline, and Cycads appealed to me because they offered a lot to the viewers, to people that were visiting the plants. They've got so much to offer as far as their aesthetics and their garden appeal that can be used in the gardens. They have an interesting evolutionary history, an interesting pollination and reproductive history. They also have a sad story with poaching and the loss of plants in the wild. But overall, they tell a great story. And when I was trying to appeal to especially younger children, megafauna and getting kids to use their imagination, Cycad seemed like the best plant.
Well, the things you were telling us before are fascinating, but I guess first thing, rank amateur, what's a cycad? Where does it come from?
Okay, so there's about 380 species of cycads. They come from mainly warmer climates. The greatest diversity is in Australia, Mexico, Colombia, South Africa. Those kinds of places have a great diversity. So they also survive in tropical environments, so wet, moist tropical environments, but then also dry and arid environments as well.
So that's the thing that surprised me. I just have always assumed they were arid, full sun, tough nuts. So you've mentioned the whole tropical ones before, and I'm quite surprised that there are tropical cycads. There you go.
But then also where they come from. Their cycads evolved about 280 million years ago, and they're the ones that you could probably connect to dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But the cycads around us today, the living cycads that everyone would see today, are only about 12 million years old, and they're the ones that were distributed by megafauna.
It's a big group of plants divided into two families, I just recently found out. I thought they were all in Cycadaceae or whatever. Some of the things that interested me when I did my research was the fact that, we know that a lot of them are under threat, but in fact several are basically extinct in the wild, which is a bit frightening.
Yes, yeah. Mainly in South Africa. South Africa has seen the most disruption to their species out of any, and that's mainly about poaching cycads.
So it's not necessarily habitat loss, which is something we always assume is the worst offender when it comes to species extinctions, but it's actually collectors going out there and digging them up and taking them away.
So here's the thing, most cycads are pretty damn big,
Yes.
And they take a long time to grow. So if you're out poaching cycads, that's quite an activity to engage in. But I guess it's a salutary warning. Not to Australia, because we can't bring in live plants, but if you're in a part of the world where you can buy mature large plants, you really need to find out where it's come from and what it is.
Yeah, and cycads, of course, most of them, or all of them possibly, are on the CITES list. So
yeah, they are.
They're meant to be banned as far as exporting around the world is concerned.
So don't go buying mature cycads.
Yeah, because it's
from
not
strange people on street corners. That's what I was.
Yeah, well, they're almost invariably come out of the wild, which is scary.
Where they sit in sort of the evolutionary process of reproduction. So your point was these were the first seed-producing plants.
Yes. So there were seed ferns, but these were generally known as the first seed plants.
And pretty weird ways of enjoying themselves, of propagating and pollinating.
Yeah, the pollination, the process of pollination is really fascinating. A colleague of mine from Utah University, Irene Terry, through a lot of study in the field, worked out that cycads that are pollinated by weevils, and so they have a ectosymbiotic relationship with cycads. So cycads rely on the weevils and the weevils rely on the cycads. So the process is like this. The weevils eat the pollen. Cycads are dioecious, so there's male cones and female cones. When a female cone that produces seeds is ready to be fertilised, there's a chemical reaction between the pollen cone, the male cone, between the two, and the female cone releases a scent. The male cone heats up 10 to 15 to 20 degrees above ambient temperature, which repels the thrips out of the male cone, and then it is attracted to the female cone, and that's how pollination occurs.
Wow. So the weevils eat the pollen.
Yeah.
They then hatch. They're then forced out by the temperature change.
Yeah.
Fly across to the lady and pollinate.
Yeah. But yeah, it is a fascinating process.
And is that common? I mean, do all cycads have that kind of process for pollination, or do Australian ones do different things? South African ones do different things?
No, it is mainly small insects. So there's weevils and also beetles that pollinate as well.
I guess it makes sense, because if they're that old, there weren't that many insects.
Yeah, well, the beetles and some of those weevily type things are very ancient groups of insects. So yeah, they would have evolved with the cycads and has built up this sort of symbiotic relationship, which of course is really important to those sorts of plants because their pollen is being distributed in a very sorted way. It's not just being blown by the wind or whatever and hoping for the best.
Like a pine tree.
Wind pollinators tend to produce huge, vast amounts of pollen. Perhaps the cycads produce far less, but they want to make sure it's specifically taken to the right place. So,
interesting.
And when you're in habitat and you'll see cycads occurring in their natural environment, you'll often see, say, 10 males to 1 to 2 female coning plants. And that's because you often have more males to sort of cater for feeding insects and keep perpetuating their life cycle.
so there you go.
So the ladies could be more selective too.
Well, hey, that's how it works.
That's
doesn't
how
it?
it works. But I think behind us there's an enormous specimen with the cone. So I think we're going to go and have a look at that and just talk a bit more about seed distribution.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
All right, Tim, I couldn't help but notice this as we walked around the corner. So this is obviously a female plant because that's the female cone. Tell me about this particular species because I'm not particularly familiar with it.
Yeah, so this is Dioon spinulosum from Mexico.
Yeah.
In habitat, they can get quite tall. I think I've never seen them in habitat, but they can get up to 10 meters.
Good to see that. That's a cycad.
And this cone, it's unique with this species because the cone actually has this drooping effect.
Yeah, well, actually, now that you mention that, most cycads I've seen have got a sort of more upright looking cone.
They do.
Yep.
I can't tell you why the cones actually do that. I'm sure others might know that, but yeah, as you said, this is a female cone,
and it has got a boyfriend.
Yeah,
has it not? Yes.
Which, look, this is a great thing about botanic gardens and being able to display these differences between female and male because the plants are look exactly the same.
So you don't actually know what a cycad is sex-wise until it gets to a mature stage and starts coning.
No, and maturity can be up to 20 to 30 years. So it's
long term.
A long time, and that's a reason why some of these plants need to stay in habitat for a long time so they can evolve.
That in your hand is the male cone, or what's left of it.
Yeah, so this is the Dioon spinulosum, this is the male cone, and this is the female cone. So the little components to the male cone are microsporophylls. So they have the pollen
in there somewhere.
Yep, so they hold the pollen within them. And these are the megasporophylls, and that's where the seed is.
All right.
We were talking about pollination before, and this is where, the pollen will go over to this one. This one will not have viable seed because we don't have the natural pollinator here. And you can, although you can hand pollinate.
I was going to say, is there a way that you can do this physically if you haven't got a pollinator? I mean, that's what they did with vanilla, and they found that they could hand pollinate it and created an industry. So I guess there must be a way of doing it.
Yeah, there is. To go back a little bit first, is cycad seed, it's termed as recalcitrant seed. So it's seed that cannot be stored in a seed bank, has only a certain shelf life.
Right.
Pollen can be stored for more than 10 years or more.
All right.
So what we do to hand pollinate cycads is we get the pollen from the same species.
Yep.
We usually mix it with some clean water, some sort of
sort of a distilled water.
Distilled water, thank you. And then what we'll do is, when the female cone is receptive, basically you just squirt the pollen inside.
So do these scales actually open slightly, or?
Dioons will only, you can tell when they've loosened.
Yeah, they've just got a little tiny bit.
Yeah, this one hasn't loosened that much, but I've never pollinated a Dioon, but There's different methods for different species. Some people will cut the tops off cones, pollinate, and then put back down.
Oh, goodness.
And then again, the process for viable seed can take over a year as well. So
again, it's long term.
Long-term prospects for growing cycads.
Now, Tim, you said something to me about a pollen bank, and that Melbourne Botanic Gardens is looking to do that. Is that the case?
Yeah. So we're starting to explore the opportunity to store pollen, because pollen does last up to 10 or more years in a cryo sort of situation. And this is going to be really helpful for our conservation work that we're doing, because like cycads in South Africa, Australian cycads are also on the decline. So with our collection of species in habitat, once they start to cone, we'll log the pollen and we'll start to pollinate, and potentially it'd be an opportunity to put plants back into the wild.
Actually, speaking of Australian species, I read somewhere that at one point the government was actually paying people to kill them. So they were trying to get rid of them out of the country because, of course, of the potential poisonous properties of them with stock.
Yeah, that's another really interesting story about cycads, particularly up in the Queensland, North New South Wales and Queensland area. If you had cycads on your property, you were obliged to get rid of them, because in times that were dry or drought, cycad leaves still look green and palatable to cattle in particular, but also sheep. So the animals would eat them, and then they get something called the Zamia staggers. And the Zamia staggers is the neurotoxins within cycads that affect the animals and ultimately can lead to their death.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
So we made a concerted effort to destroy them.
Yeah.
Which is also a bit sad, I think.
It is a bit sad,
But it didn't work, fortunately.
Tim, I guess, obviously, that point about poaching, a lot of people grow them, and in terms of landscape architecture, obviously I can see why they're so attractive, because they're so sculptural and amazing. So let's assume that you've got your cycad from a legitimate source, such as the Botanic Gardens Friends Society here.
Yes.
I must say, not casting aspersions, but this is looking a little yellowy. What's going on with this one?
Nutrient deficiency can be a problem. This is Lepidozamia peroffskyana. It comes from northern New South Wales and southern Queensland.
Okay.
Now this species...
It's beautiful.
Look,
it's massive.
They do prefer a little bit more shade sometimes. And you can even see the shade in deep into the plant, it's a little bit more greener.
Yeah.
So I would suggest it's a combination of sun bleaching, but also they can get manganese deficient, which can be simply corrected with like an iron chelate and some blood and bone, or a manganese solution as well. So that can help.
Right. But of course, if you're growing them in the garden, you'd have to kind of know what the species was to know what its preference was. So a lot of them do prefer shade.
You can get cycads that do prefer shade, and some that are very well adapted to sun. A lot of South African species are well adapted to sun and have even a waxy sort of component to their leaves, which is kind of like a sunscreen really for plants. Yeah. There's another species in this genus called Lepidozamia Horti-Culturalists. That's one of the, I think it is classified as the tallest cycad in the world, up to 17 and above meters.
Wow.
And that grows in the Daintree rainforest. So tropics, shade. Yeah. But just to go on your point there, yes, they make great pot plants and great sculptural additions to your garden.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. It's been fascinating to learn just a little bit about this really complex and interesting primitive group of plants.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm fans, and I'm glad that you had the opportunity to come.
Well, thank you. It's so interesting. So where should we go? There are cycads dotted all over the garden. We're sort of in a cluster here, but what's a great cycad, a favourite of yours we should go and look at next?
Yeah, look, it's quite interesting because, yes, although this is the cycad collection, the collection at the Botanic Gardens extends beyond one spot because, as we've discussed, the opportunity for grow them in different environments. But down near the William Tell Shelter, that's a great spot to see diversity, and you'll see among some of my favourites there. And you'll see diversity with blue species and others.
The blue ones. Yes, we haven't seen the blue ones yet. We've got to go see some of those.
But the William Tell Pavilion, that sounds romantic.
Yes, well.
Let's go to William Tell Pavilion.
Pick up a bottle of champagne on the way.
Yes.
There you go. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you so much.
Well, Stephen, this is the most beautiful spot. Aloes, wattle, goodness knows what else, but all of these cycads on a rocky knoll.
Yes, and they're mainly the South African representatives of the genus, and we've got a fabulous upright one up there. It is Encephalartos whitelockii, which is a fabulous looking specimen with its very vertical leaves. And behind me here is one of the most beautiful, I think, of the cycads, Encephalartos trivenosus, with its spiny blue foliage, which I think is just beautiful.
That is divine. Got such a beautiful, elegant vase shaped to the leaves, and that beautiful blue-grey.
Yeah,
but
and seriously prickly.
Yeah, but that shuttlecock one, wow. I think Tim was saying that has the longest leaves of any of the cycads.
Yeah, well, I can sort of get that, because if it was much longer than that, they probably couldn't stand up.
And also, just aesthetically, the mix of grasses, there's this climbing ficus, the aloes, the wattle. I don't know, it's just a beautiful moment, isn't it, in the garden?
And it's in amongst some seriously Victorian rockwork as well, so it's a very old part of the garden.
And we've come across quite a bit of Victorian rockwork in our careers.
Yes, we certainly have, so there's still a fair bit of it around, funnily enough, in Victoria.
Well, there you go. And honestly, the Melbourne Botanic Gardens is always a glory, no matter when you're here. So we're here, it's literally the last days of winter. Spring is just over there.
Yeah.
All the aloes are in bloom, as you can see. Whenever you come, there's something fascinating.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, cycads don't really have a peak season, do they?
Although they do look particularly good a little later in the year when they have their fresh flush of new fronds.
True.
So, yeah, that can be a high point with them.
Well, on to the next.
All right. Well, Matthew, Tim talked about the equatorial qualities of most of the species of cycads.
Yes.
But this one's from Japan, and there's a good chance people in colder climates could grow this one.
So what's this one?
This one is Cycas revoluta, which is rather inappropriately, although I guess in a way understandably, called the sago palm. They did make sago from it, so there's that. But, you know, and tapioca's another one of those things.
No, I'm being childhood triggered and having to eat those things at school in England as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Yes, but I've seen photos of this plant with snow on it, so it will tolerate fairly cold climates. And so if anybody in a colder climate wants to try a cycad, this is probably the one to go for. And it's probably the most commercially available species of them all.
And can I say too, many cycads only a mother could love.
Yeah.
This has such a handsome form.
Oh, it is. It's very handsome indeed.
Got a
I mean,
beautiful trunk on
it. It's got fabulous leaves that are really structurally interesting, and the way they sit as the crown. It is a very, very handsome cycad.
And to our point about pot culture, this would do well. I mean, it would look very elegant in a large tub.
Yeah, this one's probably a bit big to put in a tub, but a young one, yes, and they'll last
centuries.
Yeah, they'll last for ages in a pot, and cycads don't mind being a bit root restricted and all that sort of thing, so they are actually very, very good tub specimens.
Yeah. This one is stunning. There we go. All right, on to the next. Oh, Stephen, cycads, I have adored this. I've got a sad specimen in a pot. I'm not sure what it is. Now I've got to go and find out.
Oh, yeah, well, I think that's a good idea. It's better to know what it is, because once you know what it is, you can work out where it came from. You can then possibly work out where you should keep it.
And so they do make great tub specimens, as we have discovered. And now what's this one behind us?
Well, this is the same one that is the oldest pot plant in the world, and the big one in the garden here that we took our images in front of as well. Yeah. So it's a sort of semi-mature form of Encephalartos altensteinii.
Beautiful, absolutely stunning.
Yep.
And I guess the obvious connection, which we haven't talked about at this point, is that some of their common names include the word palm, not even remotely related to palms.
No, they're a far more primitive group of plants, and it's interesting because it's sort of like palms and cycads both had the same ideas but at different times.
Cacti, euphorbia.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, lots of plants will evolve similar strategic things to survival, and so you get this sort of co-evolution of plants that are actually not even vaguely related. So these are early seed-bearing plants, probably probably more closely related to conifers. The palms, of course, are monocotyledonous plants, so they're in the giant family that includes everything from grasses to bamboos to lilies to all those sort of strappy leaf things, and so they're completely different groups of plants. The palms are quite modern, and of course the cycads are ancient.
Very ancient and stunning, which also brings us to that point about ancient. If you're in a part of the world where you can buy large, mature specimens, just make sure that you're getting them from a reputable dealer and not from someone or from someone who's been collecting them in the wild, because it's such an issue. And it's odd because you just wouldn't think that poaching would have such an impact on a plant like this.
Yeah, well, and it does, because they go in with the heavy machinery and you think, all right, well, it's a huge thing, it's going to be really difficult to get out. But they demand huge dollars as well as mature specimens, so it's worth the effort from a poacher's perspective to go out and dig them out of the wild and then flog them on, and it's very sad. And of course, once you take them out of the wild, you're having an impact on the genetic material in the wild, but you're also putting the individual plants at risk, because not all of them survive what you do to them, and so some of them will die, some will end up in collections. They may survive, but then they've got no purpose in life anymore.
No, because they need the opposite sex to multiply and prosper. So anyway, that's a sad note. The positive note, though, is all this wonderful sharing of pollen around the world to help some of these really endangered cycads maintain their status. Well, this has been gorgeous. Many thanks to Tim and the team at the Botanic Gardens for letting us wander around.
Yes, it's always great fun to come down here, and I always see something I didn't know was in the garden, so it's an exciting day for me, I have to say.
Now, I'll put the link to the Botanic Gardens below. It is one of the top 5 botanic gardens in the world, so we are very, very lucky to have it on our doorstep. So many thanks again to the team here. Stephen, what on earth could we be doing next week?
Well, we probably won't be in the Botanic Gardens, and we won't be engaging with perhaps a seriously primitive group of plants, but we'll be doing something interesting, I'm sure.
We will, but if you want to know what it is, you'll have to hit subscribe, because we post every week on a Friday.
And don't forget our shorts. So if you've got a question you'd like to ask me, pop it in the comments below. Make sure you put your country of origin or where you're from for context, and I will get round to answering those questions on our Monday shorts.
Brilliant, but we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye all.